you would do well to think long and hard about the truth of the following statement and its greater implications. As people, as human beings, we cannot generate true motivation, that is to say, lasting motivation, for any effort that we secretly perceive as pointless. In other words, a big old waste of our time. People often say to me, I have a really difficult time maintaining motivation in my efforts to get emotionally healthy or to authentically recover from an emotional disorder. Well, have you considered that a part of you has possibly gone into this process disbelieving that you can ever truly be healthy? If so, apply the quote that I just gave you and do a self-examination. You cannot maintain enthusiasm for any effort that you believe is ultimately going to be a complete waste of your time. So the first step upon realizing you carry these doubts is to do what? So if you do a self-examination and you realize, you know, I never really thought about it before, but Barnett's right. I don't think a healthy version of me is possible. I don't believe that. What then would be the very first step? To just go through the motions anyway? Well, that's what most people would do. Most people would just pretend and just go through the motions, do everything that they're told, cross their fingers and hope for the best, even while carrying that secret belief that there is no possibility of some future healthy version of themselves. But remember the quote I just gave you. So what is the very first step? If you examine yourself and you find that that's true for you, what has to be the very first step? The very first step, upon realizing you carry doubts like this, is to eliminate the doubts, right? That has to be the first step. Why? Because as human beings, we cannot maintain true enthusiasm for any meaningful length of time toward any effort or any goal that we secretly perceive is ultimately going to be a total waste of our time. You say, well, that sounds a whole lot easier said than done. If I think a thing is impossible, whether consciously or unconsciously, if I think a thing is impossible, it ain't as easy as just snapping my fingers and suddenly I believe it is possible. You're right. That's very insightful of you. You're absolutely right about that. So what do you got to do? Well, have you considered that I was once in that exact situation and now I'm not? So that's one thing you can do. You can look at examples of other people like myself who was once in that situation, thought I'm never going to naturally behave differently than I do right now. I'm always going to have these very unhealthy tendencies. But, if you think about it, like if somebody had told me 40 years ago that any normal person in your neighborhood could own and operate a little flying camera that it could just fly around the neighborhood and you can watch it on your phone. You can watch what it sees on your phone. I would have said, no, you're lying to me. That's not possible. But seeing people actually doing that today, isn't it wild? Isn't it wild when you think about it? People flying these drones around your neighborhood and able to watch and record everything that little flying camera sees on their telephones. Once I see that, it doesn't seem quite so impossible anymore, does it? In fact, I've seen, for example, a couple friends of mine flying those things, and I say, well, that looks easy enough. I could do that. I've even considered getting myself one of those. I haven't done so yet, only because I can't figure out any practical use for it. If the batteries ran something like 3 hours or something like that, that'd be awesome. But the fact that they can only go 15, 20 minutes before they need a charge, not worth me loading into my backpack and carrying out into the woods or anything like that. But I hope you get the point that you can use my real life experience of having authentically recovered from a lifetime of emotional disorder as evidence to convince yourself that going from a lifetime of emotional unhealth to a life of real emotional health is possible. You are not wasting your time and energy.